For almost the past 5 years now, we've seen a resurgence of classic video game franchises getting remakes or remasters, essentially having a brand new lease of life. Most recently, franchises such as Spyro the Dragon, Medieval, Destroy All Humans, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater have all received such treatment with varying degrees of success, while other franchises like Prince of Persia have games in the works. However, one franchise has seemingly surpassed all expectations, and not only gone on to have a great deal of success with a single remade or remastered game, but has actually had 2 successful games, and then subsequently followed it up with a wholly brand new game late last year. As you've clicked on this video, you will of course know that I am indeed referring to the franchise mentioned in the title, Crash Bandicoot. A franchise which of course will celebrate its 25th anniversary this year. But recently, I've been thinking, as a fan of the franchise, just how bright the future looks for Crash, and just how good we have things now in comparison to, say, how we had things as fans of Crash around 10 to 12 years ago. And when I talk about the future of Crash, I don't just mean the future of the mainline series. I mean the spin-off games, as well as any other games he could potentially guest star in. I mean, how hyped is everyone now that Crash was revealed as the latest member of the second Fighters Pass DLC for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? What? What do you mean he wasn't revealed? Well, who was? What on earth is a Pyra? What's a Mithra? Okay, so we maybe have to wait a little bit longer to see our boy in Super Smash Bros, but surely the future of Crash Bandicoot is still bright, right? So coming up in today's video, my first video of 2021, I'll be looking to answer that question as we'll have a chat about the series itself, particularly its recent history, and just why this year, 2021, is such a great time to be a fan of Crash Bandicoot.
Haven't you guys ever seen a dragon before?
Hello folks, I am the Kiwi Dragon, and welcome to my first video of this promising new year. I know by the time you'll see this video, it will of course be March, so it's not exactly the new year anymore, but look, it's still early enough to say that this year could be better than the mess that was 2020. As I mentioned in the opening segment, this year is Crash Bandicoot's 25th anniversary, specifically on the 9th of September, and already celebrations are in full swing. Last year saw the release of Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time, a game which not only looks forward to the future of the Crash Bandicoot franchise, but also looks fondly back at the past and reminds us just why we love this series. Now, if you've been a fan of Crash Bandicoot for as long as I have, then you'll no doubt know that this hasn't always been the case. By the time 2008 rolled around, Crash was looking somewhat tired and lethargic. The series had somewhat stagnated, with games like Crash Tag Team Racing, Crash Boom Bang, Crash of the Titans, and Crash Mind Over Mutant. And honestly, it seemed like the franchise was just about ready to be put out to pasture. Now, that's not to say that those were awful games. In fact, I quite liked those games in all honesty, but they weren't what the majority of the fans wanted to see back in 2008. And of course, as a dying franchise, there were attempts made to resuscitate Crash, mostly via mobile racing games. And when the last of those, Crash Bandicoot Nitro Kart 2, failed to capture the interest of the mainstream audience in 2010, the writing was kind of on the wall. No disrespect to Nitro Kart 2 though, because that game is actually pretty cool, and it's a pity you can't actually get it on the iOS App Store anymore. And so, as many of you know, for the next few years from mid-2010 to mid-2016, we entered a really dark period. To use a phrase from the Doctor Who fandom, we'd entered something which I like to call the wilderness years, during which time we'd heard rumours of new games in the works, like the cancelled Crash Landed, or the proposed Crash Team Racing reboot, which was then repurposed and repackaged into DreamWorks Superstar Karts. You remember that? Anybody? And look, it's Karts with a Z! However, nothing ever surfaced that we could truly consider the continuation of this beloved franchise. This was, of course, until June 13th, 2016, a day before the official launch of the 22nd annual E3 event. Sony was holding their PlayStation press conference at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, California. Just after they'd shown the trailers for Call of Duty Infinite Warfare and Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered, a familiar theme tune hit, the audience somewhat looking confused, and it was at this moment that then President and CEO of Sony Computer Entertainment America, Sean Layden, walked out with an instantly recognisable shadow following him on the stage. This was before Layden confirmed at long last that Crash was not only coming back in a collection of remastered games for the PlayStation 4, encompassing the first 3 Crash games, Crash Bandicoot, Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back and Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped, but would also be making an appearance in that year's Skylanders Imaginators. So, aside from that slight hiccup there, Crash was finally home. Now, as you'll no doubt be aware by this point, Crash made his triumphant return in the Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy, which was originally a timed exclusive release for the PlayStation 4 when it launched in June 2017, before going multi-platinum the following year in June 2018 when the Insane trilogy was released on Xbox One, Nintendo Switch and PC, and was a resounding success. This of course was followed up in 2019 by the amazing Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled, a remake of the beloved Crash Team Racing for PS4, Xbox One and Nintendo Switch, and would feature an expanded roster, content from Crash Nitro Kart, the sequel to CTR, as well as content and characters from the then 22-year history of the Crash Bandicoot franchise, along with online multiplayer and monthly updates including new tracks, characters and customization options from the hard-working Beanox team. This game, of course, was a resounding success also, and spawned a thriving competitive scene which even I got to be a part of, and it included leagues, clan wars and unofficial ladder rankings. The game did suffer from some shortcomings however, including the online connectivity, or lack thereof sometimes, and the later addition of microtransactions which many people were unhappy about. However, many people were just happy to see another childhood favourite revived for modern times. And then came the announcement of Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time. And the question was posed, could Crash be successful a third time around? And whilst we don't know what the global sales figures are at this moment, it should be noted that Crash 4 was number 1 in the sales charts for the month of October in Australia and New Zealand. Now, being a New Zealander, I have to say that I am immensely proud of this. And to quote Thanos, seeing Crash unseat huge franchises like Star Wars, Super Mario, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater really does put a smile on my face. The game itself launched on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One to positive reactions from the community, with many people praising the gameplay, including the new mechanics like the quantum masks, the characters on offer, and the addition of skins. There was also criticism though, particularly of the story and the game itself, including far too many levels, particularly in reference to the flashback tape levels, the inverted levels, and the timeline levels. However, beyond those criticisms, and a small vocal portion of the community kicking and screaming about how much they hated the new game, Crash 4 actually seems to have been somewhat of a hit. But looking ahead to this year, can we expect any surprises? Can we expect to see anything new from the Crash Bandicoot franchise? Well, by now you should already be aware that March is actually a huge month for Crash Bandicoot. First of all, on March 12th, Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time will launch on next-gen consoles. Those include Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and Series S. There is also a PC port coming at some point in 2021, which will be launched on Blizzard's Battle.net platform, rather than on Steam like the Insane trilogy was, which admittedly is slightly bizarre. However, the launch of the game on these platforms seems to promise bug fixes, faster loading times, and better graphics, and at the same time can only be a good thing in helping to bolster the PS4 and Xbox One sales of the game. The other big Crash news for this month is that we are finally going to get the long-awaited Crash Bandicoot mobile game, Crash on the Run, later this month. As we all know, On the Run has been developed by King, who are famous for developing the Candy Crush series of games. And this game will be a fusion of the typical Crash Bandicoot platformer formula, crossed with elements of endless runner games like Temple Run. However, unlike previous mobile titles for Crash Bandicoot that range from mediocre to somewhat passable, this new Crash mobile game actually looks really promising. The designs for the most part actually look quite nice and feel familiar enough to what we've seen in recent years. Well, except for that original design for Dingo Doll. Ugh. We know that King are doing a deep dive into the history of the franchise to feature levels from the first 3 games, as well as characters who haven't been seen for a long time. So while we can only play as Crash and Coco at this stage, we know as far as bosses are concerned to expect the usual suspects like Cortex, Uka Uka, Nina, Engine, Embryo, Tiny, and Dingodile. We can also expect to see other characters like Fake Crash, the Elementals from the Wrath of Cortex, Entrance, an updated version of the Scorporilla Titan from Crash of the Titans and Mind Over Mutant, and most impressively, Mr. Crumb from the little-known Tiger Electronics LCD game Crash Bandicoot 99X. In addition, we'll see variants of each boss, including Frosty variants, Inferno variants, and Oxide variants, which I'm just going to presume means they're just green and alien looking. The game will also feature multiplayer, so you can play with your friends, and will also feature something similar to a Battle Pass, which has an unpaid and a paid variant via microtransactions, something that I'll talk about in just a few moments. But the game will be split into seasons with new content being added with each subsequent season, presumably meaning new skins and new bosses will appear. So beloved characters like Ripperoo, Pinstripe, the Komodo Brothers and Entropy, as well as many others, can be included in the game later on down the line. The game itself has already seen a soft release in selected countries around the world, but we won't see an official global release until March 25th on both the iOS App Store and the Google Play Store. Those who pre-register for the game before that time will get access to the special blue Hyena Crash skin, which many of you will no doubt be familiar with from Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled. Now, being a mobile game, it does of course include microtransactions, as I mentioned earlier with regards to the kind of battle pass that will be included. But you can also use real-life currency to buy in-game crystals to speed up time on certain events, and purchase new skins. Now, I know that'll be a big negative to some people, but to have another Crash game to play on the go, especially for those of us who don't own a Nintendo Switch, is actually really fantastic. Also, the other bonus is that it's more or less free unless you choose to pay for anything. But overall, King seems to have actually listened to what the fans have wanted to see, and it's actually just really, really heartwarming. So I hope they'll keep that up in the future as they go on developing the game. Beyond these though, can we expect to see much more from the Orange Overlord in 2021? Well, personally, I don't know if Activision will just be stopping at ports of Crash 4 and the launch of Crash on the Run. For starters, there were rumours floating around of a supposed 5-year plan for the Crash Bandicoot franchise, something which has been floating around in the heads of us Crash fans for a few years now. This rumoured 5-year plan was seen as a sort of roadmap, which would essentially reinvigorate the franchise starting in 2017 and ending in 2021. If it is to be believed, it would have started in 2017 with the Insane Trilogy on PS4, followed by the Insane Trilogy Xbox One, Switch and PC ports in 2018, the release of CTR Nitro-Fueled in 2019, followed by Crash 4 in 2020, and finishing with the Crash 4 Next Gen ports and Crash on the Run in 2021. But just take a pinch of salt for the moment and say this 5-year plan actually is a legitimate thing. Could something else be potentially added to Crash's 25th anniversary year to bolster those celebrations? Well, we do know that there are rumours of a PvP game coming at some point, which is supposedly codenamed Wumpa League. It has been suggested by many Crash Bandicoot fans that they seem to think that Wumpa League is some sort of full-blown release of a multiplayer Crash Bandicoot game, something similar along the lines to Crash Bash, but not necessarily just party games. What it could include, I don't know, but it would be a nice, interesting deviation to have a Crash Bandicoot game that is multiplayer, that isn't necessarily just a racing game. I mean, we did also have the pass and play mode for Crash Bandicoot 4, but in terms of an actual proper multiplayer full-blown game, that could be something really exciting for the Crash series. Then of course there's the elephant in the room, the potential for Crash Bandicoot to appear in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for the Nintendo Switch. Rumours have recently been swirling that Crash is apparently planned for the Fighters Pass Volume 2. One of the rumours that seemed to suggest this quite heavily was the concert leak, which was posted on 4chan back in January, claiming that the creator and director of the Super Smash Bros. Series, Masahiro Sakurai, is planning an orchestral concert in Japan in 2022, which will be available to the public in Japan with the right safety measures in place, and online to those of us outside of Japan. This leak specifically mentions that there is one song in the orchestral performance for each Smash Bros. Character. The last 3 on the list are particularly interesting. Those songs include Counterattack from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Insanity Beach from Crash Bandicoot, and Proof of a Hero from Monster Hunter. So this leak essentially was claiming that the final 2 characters would be Crash and a character from the Monster Hunter franchise. However, as we now know, this leak has been more or less proven false. As I record this, a few days ago was the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Mr. Sakurai Presents livestream focusing on Pyra and Mythra. Pyra and Mythra are now available worldwide with some new Mii Fighter costumes, with 4 of those costumes coming from the Monster Hunter franchise, which seemingly unconfirmed Monster Hunter from appearing on the Fighters Pass Volume 2, and struck a huge blow to the concert leak rumour. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that Crash won't be in Pack 10 or Pack 11. There is still hope yet, so I'm not quite giving up on this theory, especially as E3 is not too far away in June of this year, and although it will be held virtually, we have seen other big name fighters revealed at E3 in the past, like Banjo-Kazooie, who is also now a third-party character, as Rare is owned by Microsoft. And finally, this one doesn't really have any evidence or any rumours to substantiate it, but I do feel that given how we recently saw a pair of Pokemon remakes announced for Pokemon's 25th anniversary during the Pokemon Day celebrations on February 26th, it could be entirely possible that there may end up being a reveal of a new game on Crash's 25th birthday, again September 9th of this year. What exactly this game would be, I don't know. It could be that Wumpa League that I mentioned earlier, it could be a tease of a possible Crash 5, or it could be a possible follow-up to Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled, but with the art style of Crash Bandicoot before it's about time, but once again helmed by Beanox. At this point, who's to say? What we do know is that until then, we have the stunning Crash 4 to keep us going, and the soon-to-be-released Crash on the Run, which just looks absolutely amazing. I have to state that again for the record. And that, folks, is why it's such an exciting time to be a fan of Crash Bandicoot. Just so much going on in 2021, not just the 2 games that we have both on home consoles and on mobile, but the potential chance for him to appear in other series, as well as have maybe even more games if we end up being so lucky. So if you're watching this and you're a lapsed fan of Crash Bandicoot, or you know someone who is a lapsed fan, or maybe someone who has never even played the games before, it's time to get involved. There's even a fantastic back catalogue of games for you to play, but I think it's fair to say that the future of our favourite orange marsupial has, quite frankly, never looked brighter. But what do you think? What would you like to see this year for Crash's 25th anniversary? How confident are you in the future of this franchise? Drop me a comment down below and I'll do my best to respond to you. If you've stuck around this long, I'd like to thank you for watching my first video in over half a year. You may have been wondering why I've been gone for so long, and to cut a long story short, I needed some time away from my mental health. I think it's safe to say that 2020 was an incredibly rough year for all of us, in one way or another. In particular, I lost a family member to the pandemic, and I also started at a new job, which I absolutely adored. And unfortunately that job, which was really dear to me, was later taken away from me when my contract wasn't renewed, due to the poor financial circumstances the company was in as a result of the pandemic. So I needed some time away to heal and just to really think about what I wanted to do moving forward. And honestly, I gave it some thought, and I'd like to give YouTube another proper go, especially as you guys have been so receptive and supportive of my videos in the past. I know my upload schedule is rather all over the place, but I'd like to think that while I'm not as consistent as other YouTube personalities who are in this field, I like to think that I make up for that somewhat with the quality of my videos. And also, as you're watching this right now, I actually have a backlog of videos in the works, so if you thought that during my time off I wasn't keeping track of any ideas I had for future videos, you'd be quite wrong on that one, I'd say. And don't worry, for those of you who aren't so interested in Crash Bandicoot, I have plans to talk about some other franchises as well, particularly ones that I've played in my time off, like Spyro the Dragon, Sonic the Hedgehog, Super Mario, The Legend of Zelda, Pokemon, Ratchet & Clank, as well as Jak and Daxter. I'd like to announce that I'm planning on opening a Discord server in the near future. I had plans to unveil it last year, but my personal circumstances didn't permit me to do so. So if you'd like to stay informed about when the server goes public, please follow me on Twitter at the Kiwi Dragon. I've also decided to open up a Patreon. I don't expect anyone to become a patron of the channel, but I'd really appreciate it if you'd consider doing so. My content has always been and always will be free to view, but as I mentioned before, I'm currently out of a job, and in these trying times I'd appreciate donations so that I may upgrade my equipment and software so I can continue creating content, as well as looking into live streaming and purchasing new games for me to review for the channel. And of course, any funds that you donate to me would go straight back into the channel so that I can keep on growing and improving as a creator and making content for you to all enjoy. I do have benefits for those who do support me on Patreon, including a Patreon backer role on the aforementioned Discord that will launch in the near future. And all backers will be credited at the end of my videos, so feel free to check it out at www.patreon.com/thekiwidragon. I have also opened up a Ko-fi? I don't know how you pronounce this thing. If you'd like to donate, but instead of committing to monthly donations, you can do single donations as and when you choose to. You can take a look at that by heading to www.ko-fi.com/thekiwidragon. But that's all from me today. If you're new here and you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button and hit that bell icon to be notified either occasionally or every time I upload new content. If you could also like this video and share it with your friends, family, and any Crash Bandicoot communities you're part of, I'd certainly appreciate it. For now though, thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Stay safe, stay awesome, and have yourselves a wonderful day. Bye for now.